The sun glared mercilessly off the glass walls of the train station cafe, scattering light across the polished floor and the anxious faces of the morning crowd. The hum of chatter and the hiss of coffee machines masked something far more dangerous. It was the kind of day that should have been ordinary, mundane. But for Dante Marino, nothing about today was ordinary. Nothing about today was mundane. Dante sat in a corner booth, sunglasses shielding eyes that had seen more death and betrayal than most would in a lifetime. His tailored suit was immaculate, his posture unshakable, yet beneath the calm surface was a storm brewing. Across from him, the cappuccino steamed in its cup, untouched. His mind wasn't on coffee. His mind was on the train scheduled to depart in 30 minutes, a meeting with an associate he couldn't fully trust, a hand extended from shadows, cloaked in promises that felt too smooth to be real. The cafe door jingled. A young woman appeared, Lena, the cashier. Her hair was tied neatly back, but her fingers twitched nervously as she adjusted the register. Her eyes flicked toward Dante every few seconds, darting like a cornered animal's. She knew the danger. Everyone in this station knew the stakes. But still, she held a secret that could turn the day into a catastrophe or a salvation, a secret written in ink on a torn bill. Dante's attention snapped to her when she approached. She carried herself with a careful confidence, but her hands betrayed her. The torn bill, crisp yet jagged along its edge, rested between her fingers like a fragile warning. She slid it toward him across the counter. Dante's eyebrow lifted. Normally, he would toss it back with a sharp reprimand. Torn money was an insult. A challenge. But something in her eyes stopped him. There was fear and urgency there, a quiet desperation that resonated deeper than money or manners. He picked up the bill, unfolding it slowly, deliberately, trying to hide his impatience. And then he read the words. Balmo and train, betrayal, TON board. For a heartbeat, the cafe disappeared. His surroundings, the clatter of cups, the murmur of patrons, the sunlight filtering through windows, all vanished into the background, replaced by a singular, piercing reality. The danger was real, and it was immediate. The ink was smudged, the edges frayed, yet the warning burned brighter than the morning sun. Dante felt a cold twist in his chest. He wasn't used to fear. Fear had no place in his life. But now, there it was, sharp and undeniable. Lena leaned closer, whispering in a voice barely audible. They're watching you. Don't trust anyone. Her gaze flitted to the entrance repeatedly, as though expecting a sniper's crosshair to appear at any second. Dante's pulse quickened, not from surprise, but from the sudden, undeniable weight of responsibility. If the words were true, lives hung in the balance, his, hers, and hundreds of strangers on the train he was about to board. He straightened in his seat, a controlled fury flickering across his sharp features. He was no stranger to betrayal, no stranger to death, but this casual, orchestrated threat was different. It carried a personal touch, a signature of someone close enough to know his schedule, yet bold enough to strike with such impunity. Dante's hand clenched the torn bill. He studied Lena closely. She wasn't trembling from fear. She was trembling from urgency. This was not a prank. This was not coincidence. She had risked everything to hand him this single piece of paper, and in doing so, she had made herself part of the danger. Outside, the station clock ticked toward the train's departure. Passengers streamed past, unaware of the calamity poised to strike. They laughed, checked phones, and jostled luggage, oblivious to the deadly countdown ticking in the veins of this city's underworld. Dante rose slowly, his mind racing. Every instinct screamed, do not board. Yet experience and pride whispered, you cannot run from what is meant for you. He had survived assassins, riots, and betrayals before, but today felt different. Today, the threat was personal, precise, and cunning. And yet, the fear wasn't paralyzing, it was a fuel, igniting his mind with possibilities, strategies, escape routes, and counterattacks. He turned to Lena. How sure are you? His voice was calm, measured, but it carried the weight of a man who could command armies yet was suddenly at the mercy of a single cashier's warning. Her eyes met his without hesitation. I heard them. I saw them plan it. If you board, you die. And it won't look like anyone's fault but your own. Dante's jaw tightened. He could feel the threads of a trap weaving themselves around him, each one leading toward catastrophe. He had allies, sure, but could he trust any of them now? His gaze swept the cafe, noting faces of his own men scattered among civilians, the unknown presence of spies in plain sight. Everyone was a potential traitor. Everyone a possible executioner. And then came the subtle, almost imperceptible movement in the corner of the cafe, the tilt of a camera lens, a reflection of a watch, the slight adjustment of a jacket concealing a weapon. Dante's eyes narrowed. Every detail mattered. Every microsecond was a chance to survive or perish. He folded the torn bill carefully, slipping it into the breast pocket of his jacket. Not as money, not as a note, but as a lifeline, a warning, a clue. Then, without a word, he moved toward the door, each step deliberate, measured, a predator entering an open field. He didn't run. Running would signal fear. He needed control. The station was bustling with mid-morning activity. Travelers hurried past, some oblivious, some distracted by phones or children. Dante's senses tuned to every vibration, every whisper, every subtle movement. He could feel the station breathing, pulsing, alive with potential threats. And amid this normalcy lurked the extraordinary, the imminent threat of death disguised as routine travel. As Dante approached the platform, Lena followed at a distance. She did not call out. She did not attempt to physically intervene. Her role was simple: survive long enough to see him heed her warning, survive long enough to make the choice that could save hundreds. And for her, every step closer to the train was a gamble with fate. The train appeared at the platform, glinting steel under the daylight. Its doors hissed open, inviting the unsuspecting into a carriage that, moments from now, could become a tomb. Dante's men formed a protective line around him, yet even their loyalty felt tenuous now, shadowed by the possibility that someone among them had been compromised. He paused at the first step of the train, glancing back at Lena. Her expression was a mixture of hope and terror, a silent plea that he understand the gravity of the moment. Then, Dante's gaze swept forward, the train's interior, the rows of empty seats waiting to be filled by fate and choice, and the unknown that lay ahead. And then, in the stillness of that moment, Dante Marino made a decision. Not a rash one, not a fearful one. A calculated, deliberate choice that would define the rest of his life. He boarded the train. The doors began to close, the sunlight sliding away from the platform, and Dante felt the shift, a subtle tremor underfoot, a whisper of danger moving with mechanical inevitability. Somewhere in the middle of that steel beast, the words of the torn bill echoed in his mind. Balmo en train. Betrayal. Dio en board. Every instinct screamed that this was the day everything changed. Every step he took along the aisle was a step deeper into a web of deceit, danger, and destiny. And outside, Lena's eyes followed him, filled with the terror and hope of someone who knew the price of silence and the power of a single, torn bill. The sun glinted off the train's windows one last time before it began to pull away from the station. And in that light, Dante Marino knew one thing with absolute certainty. Today, the game had begun. And this time, losing was not an option. As the train picked up speed, Dante's attention snapped to a shadowy figure in the far end of the car, someone familiar, someone he trusted once. Now smiling just a little too calmly. His heartbeat spiked. The betrayal wasn't just a warning anymore, it was sitting in the carriage with him. The train lurched forward, steel wheels grinding against rails, carrying Dante Marino deeper into a trap he could feel but not yet fully see. The sunlight streaming through the windows painted the car in gold and shadow, but even in the bright day, danger clung to the corners. Dante moved with the calm precision of a predator, eyes scanning every passenger, every movement, every flicker of reflection on polished surfaces. He noticed the familiar faces of his men scattered throughout the carriage. Loyal? Maybe. Or maybe the betrayal ran deeper than he imagined. The thought made the fine hairs on his neck stand on end. Something about this ride felt off. The air smelled faintly of dust and perfume, but beneath it lingered the metallic tang of danger. Lena had managed to slip onto the platform unnoticed and now moved discreetly down the aisle, threading through passengers with careful steps. She kept her gaze fixed on Dante, the torn bill still vivid in her mind. Every second counted. If he failed to act, the warning would come too late. Dante took a seat in the private cabin he had reserved. At first glance, it looked secure, isolated from the other passengers. But the instincts that had kept him alive for decades screamed otherwise. There was something subtle, a misplaced briefcase, a door slightly ajar, the nervous flick of a guard's eye. The kind of detail only someone like him could notice, and it was enough to tell him the danger was inside, not outside. He leaned back slightly, testing the calm facade. "We've got company," he muttered to no one in particular. His second-in-command, Carlo, avoided his gaze, pretending to adjust the luggage in the overhead rack. The hesitation was enough. Dante's mind immediately catalogued it as a threat. It wasn't paranoia, it was survival. Across the aisle, passengers laughed, checked their phones, adjusted their hats, oblivious to the storm coiled around them. Dante's gaze shifted to Lena, who ducked behind a seat as he observed her moving closer, weaving her way toward him. She mouthed something silently, urgent, impossible to ignore even without sound. "It's on this train." A cold weight settled into Dante's chest. It wasn't just a bomb, it was betrayal, conspiracy, and intent all wrapped into one precise, deadly package. He glanced at his men, trying to discern who was loyal, who was compromised, and who might be waiting for the perfect moment to strike. His life had been built on instinct, trust, and control. Right now, two of those pillars were under threat. The train creaked as it accelerated, every metal joint screaming under stress. Outside, sunlight danced across the passing countryside, a stark contrast to the tension inside. Dante could feel every vibration, every whisper of movement in the car. Something was about to happen, he could feel it. Something terrible. And Lena's presence was the thin thread tethering him to the truth. Suddenly, a hand clamped on Dante's shoulder. He spun, a flash of reflexive violence ready to strike, but it was Carlo, his second in command. Carlo's expression was calm, too calm, and his eyes flickered away when Dante met his gaze. The subtle shift was all Dante needed to recognize the threat. He didn't speak. Words were useless. The betrayal had eyes and a heartbeat now, and it sat in the very seat across from him. Lena, still weaving between passengers, caught Dante's eye once more. She moved closer, keeping her motions subtle, slipping behind a row of seats to get within range. She whispered again, though only he could see, "It's rigged. The bomb is tied to the train system." Dante's jaw clenched. His mind raced through possibilities, calculations, contingencies. He had to act, but any wrong move could trigger the disaster. The torn bill, once a simple warning, now felt like a lifeline stretched across a precipice. Every second counted. Every heartbeat mattered. Carlo leaned toward Dante again, masking his words with a conspiratorial tone. "Relax, boss. Nothing to worry about. Just a smooth ride." But Dante wasn't fooled. The voice, the posture, the too easy smile, it all screamed deceit. His hand brushed subtly over the concealed pistol at his side, an unspoken promise. The first betrayal would cost dearly. Then Lena made her move. With the subtlety of a trained shadow, she maneuvered past the last seat row and slid next to Dante. Her eyes locked onto his, a silent plea, a warning carved into her gaze. He leaned slightly forward, acknowledging her presence. The next seconds would determine life or death. Dante studied the cabin. The doors at the far end, the overhead luggage, the occasional reflective panel, they all hid possibilities. The bomb could be anywhere. Marco, one of his most trusted men who had been with him for years, had disappeared somewhere along the train. That absence was no accident. His instincts screamed betrayal, and Dante didn't ignore instincts. "Is it wired?" he asked Lena quietly. Her head shook slightly, eyes wide. "I don't know. I only know where it's meant to go. The engine. The pressure plate beneath the main floor. Whoever planted it, they're professionals." Her whisper carried the weight of panic, but also a strange resolve. She hadn't come this far to fail. The train rattled, a sharp jolt, as if reminding them both of the ticking countdown. Passengers screamed as the movement made glasses spill and coffee cups clatter. But Dante and Lena were focused entirely on the invisible enemy. The threat wasn't just the bomb, it was the people around them, the allies who weren't allies, the betrayal that had inserted itself directly into Dante's trusted circle. A shadow moved at the far end of the cabin. Dante's eyes locked onto it, muscles tensing. It was deliberate, patient, silent. Marco stepped into view, smiling too calmly, and in that smile was all the danger of betrayal years in the making. His gaze met Dante's with something deeper than malice, revenge, cunning, and inevitability. Lena grabbed Dante's arm subtly. "He's the one," she whispered. "He's controlling the device. We can't let him reach the engine." Her words were simple, direct, but carried the weight of lives. Dante nodded slightly, calculating. Every step, every breath, every microsecond counted. They couldn't alert the passengers. Chaos would trigger disaster. Only precision, control, and courage could save them now. The train roared on, slicing through the daylight, a steel serpent racing toward unknown danger. Dante moved toward Marco, careful, deliberate, each footfall measured, while Lena shadowed him, eyes darting to every potential threat. Marco's smirk widened, as if the danger excited him. His fingers twitched slightly, ready to activate the device at any moment. Dante's mind ran faster than the train itself, calculating distances, weights, probabilities. Every second lost was closer to detonation. He needed a plan, an advantage, a way to turn Marco's confidence into his own leverage. Lena's presence was vital. She had seen the setup. She knew the mechanics. Together, they were a team against inevitable destruction. Suddenly, a subtle hiss, a faint click from beneath the floorboards. Marco had begun testing the device. Dante froze, then reacted with the speed of experience. He lunged, grabbing Marco's wrist, twisting it away from the floor. The first move of betrayal had been met with immediate counteraction. But Marco was strong, trained, prepared. The struggle began, muscles coiling, bodies twisting, the day's sunlight slicing across the car as if nature itself were bearing witness. Passengers screamed, unsure of the fight's nature. Dante's eyes remained locked on Marco's, each second a battle of wits, skill, and survival. Lena leaned down, trying to locate the pressure plate, fingers brushing the floor cautiously, knowing any wrong motion could trigger disaster. The clock ticked, every movement amplified by the impending doom. And then, as the train curved sharply into an open stretch of tracks, Dante realized the full scope. The betrayal wasn't just Marco, it was systemic. The bomb, the setup, the timing, it was designed with intimate knowledge of Dante's habits. Someone close had orchestrated it, threading danger through every loyal face he had trusted. Survival required more than strength, it demanded insight, precision, and courage beyond calculation. Lena glanced at him, eyes wide. "We need to move," she whispered urgently. "Now, before it's too late." Dante's mind raced. Step by step, movement by movement, he began to take control, channeling fear into action, instinct into strategy. The train of no return had left the station. They were committed. And yet, there was still a sliver of hope, a single path to survival, a chance to turn betrayal into victory. The sun glinted through the windows, cutting across Dante's determined face. The train roared on, unstoppable, carrying betrayal, danger, and death. But Dante Marino wasn't a man who bowed to fate. He was a man who created it. And today, fate would be challenged. Dante lunged at Marco, managing to twist the detonator hand away, but in the process, the pressure plate beneath the engine began to shift. Lena screamed, "The timer is starting. We have minutes, maybe seconds." The sunlight streaming into the carriage couldn't illuminate the terror that now gripped Dante's heart. The full betrayal was in motion, and survival depended on impossible choices. The metallic roar of the train filled the carriage, punctuated by the occasional clatter of luggage and startled cries from passengers. Dante Marino's pulse was a metronome of danger, each beat synchronized with the rhythm of betrayal that had already taken root. He had survived assassination attempts, ambushes, and betrayals before, but never one so precise, so personal. Every movement inside this moving steel coffin carried consequences far greater than fear, death, chaos, and an unraveling of trust so profound it threatened to consume him entirely. Marco stood at the far end of the cabin, his posture calm, almost casual, yet every line of his body radiated lethal intent. The detonator in his hand glinted under the sunlight, a silent countdown to disaster. Dante had lunged at him moments before, twisting the device out of his grasp, but Marco's smirk had never wavered. There was a chilling satisfaction in the betrayal, as though he had been waiting for this moment for years. Lena crouched by the pressure plate beneath the engine room floor, fingers tracing the edges of the metal panels. "It's connected to the train's main system," she whispered urgently. "Any sudden movement, any tampering triggers it. Marco knows exactly what he's doing." Dante's eyes darted between the two of them. Every second wasted was another heartbeat closer to catastrophe. The train sped through the daylight countryside, oblivious to the tense storm within its steel body. Passengers remained largely unaware, but their presence only heightened the danger. Innocence in numbers could amplify destruction. One wrong move, and the lives of dozens would be snuffed out in an instant. Marco's voice broke the tense silence. Calm, precise, dripping with venom. "You never saw it coming, did you, Dante? Years of loyalty, all wasted. You raised me, trained me, and still, in the end, you destroyed what mattered most to me." Dante's jaw tightened. Betrayal had always been a lesson in his world, but Marco's words cut deeper than any blade. This wasn't a spontaneous act of rebellion. It was personal. Deeply personal. He had failed someone he had once considered a son, a brother, and ally. And now that failure had manifested in a moving bomb, ticking steadily toward oblivion. "You're making a mistake," Dante said evenly, trying to mask his inner turmoil. His hands, clenched into fists, hovered near his concealed weapon. If you do this, you destroy everything you claim to protect. Innocence, my people. Yourself. You think this makes me suffer? It will make you suffer far more. Marco laughed softly, the sound hollow and chilling. I'm beyond suffering, Dante. You built this world with your hands, and I'm here to tear it apart. Today, you don't just face me, you face the consequences of every choice you ever made. Dante stepped closer, careful, methodical. Every movement calculated, precise. Marco mirrored him, ready to strike, yet confident in his advantage. The detonator remained a silent threat in Marco's hand, poised above the pressure plate Lena had been studying. Lena looked up at Dante, her eyes wide with panic and determination. The timer, she warned. It's already counting. Minutes, maybe seconds. We don't have time to negotiate. Dante's mind raced. Every muscle coiled, every nerve alert. He had two choices. Fight Marco directly and risk triggering the device, or attempt to outsmart him, using strategy rather than brute force. Instinct and experience screamed at him. Deception and precision were the only ways forward. He moved, slowly, deliberately, toward Marco, feigning calm while scanning the carriage for anything he could use to his advantage. A seat cushion, a metal rod, even a loose piece of luggage, every object could become a weapon in a fight that required finesse and speed. Marco's smirk widened as he recognized the subtle movements of someone trained to survive. The first strike came without warning. Marco lunged, aiming for Dante's midsection with a brutal twist of his arm. Dante sidestepped, pivoted, and counted, his own fist connecting with Marco's jaw. The impact echoed through the cabin, drawing the attention of a few nearby passengers. Dante ignored them. Every second was precious. The struggle escalated. Metal clicked, bodies twisted, and the sunlight streaming through the windows glinted off sweat and determination. Marco was strong, agile, and fueled by betrayal, but Dante was seasoned, cunning, and precise. Each strike was a test, each movement a negotiation with death itself. Meanwhile, Lena worked frantically beneath the floor panels, her hands steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. She traced the wiring, examined the plate, and realized with growing horror that the device was designed to activate not just from physical tampering but from weight distribution and mechanical vibration. One wrong shift, and the explosion would be inevitable. Dante caught a glimpse of her fingers brushing against the wiring. He adjusted his stance, subtly controlling the momentum of the struggle to minimize vibration. Marco, oblivious to her actions, continued to fight, each strike bringing them closer to disaster. Then came the critical moment. Marco overextended, his arm twisting toward the pressure plate. Dante reacted instinctively, blocking the movement and using his momentum to pin Marco against a wall panel. The detonator wobbled but did not activate, a brief, heart-stopping reprieve. "Listen to me, Marco," Dante said, his voice low and urgent. "You can end this now. Let me take control, let me defuse this, and you walk away alive. This isn't a game. People will die if you don't stop." Marco's eyes flickered with conflict. For a fraction of a second, the anger and betrayal faltered. But it was enough for Dante to seize control of the situation, subtly shifting the device away from immediate danger while keeping Marco engaged. Lena whispered urgently, "We can move it, but only if he stays distracted. I can disconnect the main trigger, but it requires full attention and precision. One mistake, and..." Her words cut off as Marco lunged again, furious and unpredictable. The battle intensified, but Dante's skill began to turn the tide. He used Marco's momentum against him, guiding him toward the cabin's exit without letting him touch the pressure plate. Each movement required surgical precision, a delicate dance where a single misstep could trigger catastrophe. Passengers screamed as the fight became more physical, the tension unbearable. But Dante and Marco were not fighting for pride or anger. They were fighting for survival, each move loaded with the weight of consequence. Finally, in a daring maneuver, Dante disarmed Marco, sending the detonator sliding across the floor. Lena's fingers were already on it, steady and determined. She disconnected the main trigger with surgical precision, severing the link between the pressure plate and the explosive device. For a heartbeat, silence. The train's roar continued, but the immediate threat of detonation had passed. Marco, breathing heavily, looked at Dante with a mixture of anger and respect. The betrayal had failed, but the consequences were far from over. Dante straightened, his chest heaving with controlled breaths. Lena rose slowly, wiping sweat from her brow, eyes still wide with the adrenaline of near death. The carriage was a mess. Overturned seats, scattered luggage, frightened passengers clinging to reality. But Dante's focus remained on Marco, the one person who had nearly destroyed everything he had built. "You were my brother," Dante said quietly, voice heavy with emotion. "I trusted you. And this could have ended everything." Marco said nothing, only lowering his gaze. His betrayal had failed, but the emotional scar remained, for both of them. The train continued its journey, sunlight cutting through the windows, a cruel reminder of how close death had brushed past them in broad daylight. Dante glanced at Lena. "Good work. You saved lives today, not just mine." Her lips quivered in a small, nervous smile. The fear in her eyes had not vanished, but it had transformed into determination. She was part of this world now, a silent guardian in a dangerous game. And yet, Dante knew the danger was far from over. Marco's betrayal was a symptom of a larger conspiracy, one that could reach into every corner of his empire. The train was moving forward, carrying them deeper into daylight, deeper into danger, and deeper into a web of lies that had yet to reveal its full extent. Dante watched Marco slump into a corner, defeated but unbroken. Lena's eyes widened as she pointed toward the engine room. "That's where it's rigged. The real bomb is there." Dante's jaw tightened. The train was no longer just a carriage of passengers. It was a ticking time bomb, betrayal wrapped in steel, racing toward disaster. The engine room door loomed ahead like a portal to fate itself. The metallic hum of the train beneath their feet matched the rapid thrum of Dante Marino's pulse. Every second brought them closer to disaster, every vibration beneath the floor a reminder of the ticking bomb. Lena's grip on Dante's arm was firm, almost desperate, as they approached the confined space where betrayal had taken its most precise form. Marco waited inside, calm, a sinister patience in his posture. The detonator was no longer in his hand, now it was integrated into the train's system, a web of wires and mechanical triggers that would obliterate everything if mishandled. He smiled, and that smile carried years of carefully buried resentment. "You made it," Marco said casually, though his eyes glinted with malice. "I was beginning to think you'd let yourself be killed like the naive fool I once knew." Dante's gaze hardened. "You were my brother. My brother. And yet you planned to kill hundreds of innocent people to feed your revenge. Why, Marco? Why betray everything we built together?" Marco's smile faltered, replaced by a flash of pain that Dante almost missed. "Because you never noticed. You never cared. While you rose, while you built your empire, I was left to watch my family crumble. Your choices destroyed them, Dante. And now you face the consequences." Lena swallowed hard, realizing that the detonator was linked directly to a pressure plate beneath the train's floor. Any wrong step, any sudden motion, and the bomb would trigger. "He's lying about the device," she whispered urgently to Dante. "He knows the timing, the wiring. It's too precise. He wants control over the fear as much as the destruction." Dante nodded, understanding. Marco's attack wasn't just physical. It was psychological. Every word, every movement, every threat was designed to destabilize him, make him falter, make the mistake that would end the lives of everyone on board. Marco stepped closer, the confined space amplifying his presence. "I gave you everything, Dante. And yet, you never saw me, never understood me. Today, you pay for ignoring the truth." Dante's mind raced. They had to act, but one wrong move could be fatal. He carefully shifted his stance, keeping his weight steady to avoid triggering the pressure plate beneath the floor. Lena knelt beside the plate, her hands steady, tracing the wiring that connected the device to the train's engine system. "You're not beyond reason," Dante said, his voice low but firm. "We can fix this. We can stop it. No one has to die, not you, not me, not the passengers." Marco laughed softly, but it carried no amusement. "You don't understand, Dante. This isn't about them. It's about what you took from me. My family, my life, everything. You were too blind to see it. Now, you will witness the consequences." The timer on the device began to hum faintly, a subtle vibration that only those closest to it could feel. Lena's fingers flew over the connections, trying to isolate the main trigger. "It's designed for redundancy," she whispered. "Even if we cut one line, the other activates. Only simultaneous intervention can stop it. I can do it, but I need time." Dante turned to Marco, his eyes piercing. "Then tell me what you want. If this is revenge, if this is about pain, we can end it now. I don't want to see anyone die. But if you force my hand, I will stop you, and you will regret it." For a moment, Marco's mask of fury cracked. Dante could see the storm of emotion beneath: pain, anger, guilt, and love twisted together. I wanted you to feel what I felt when you ignored me, to understand what it means to be invisible to the one person you trusted most. Dante's chest tightened. He realized then that this wasn't merely betrayal for power or wealth. It was a deeply personal wound that had festered over years of neglect, pride, and misunderstanding. Marco wasn't a villain in the traditional sense. He was a man consumed by grief, seeking retribution in the only way he believed would make Dante feel the pain he had endured. The train rocked sharply, jolting the compartment and forcing Lena to steady herself. Dante used the motion to subtly maneuver Marco, guiding him away from the pressure plate without provoking him. The tension in the confined space was suffocating, a delicate balance between life and death hinging on every gesture. "Stop pretending this is about me," Dante said quietly, almost pleading. "This is about all of us. Your family, mine, the passengers. Innocent people will die if you continue." Marco's eyes flickered with hesitation, but it was brief. Rage surged, and he moved again, attempting to regain control of the device. Dante counted instantly, holding him back while keeping his own balance on the shifting floor. Lena's hands were precise, surgical, isolating the critical connections. The tension was unbearable: a single slip, a single miscalculation, and everything would be annihilated. Dante spoke again, his voice steady, commanding, and calm despite the chaos. "Marco, you're not beyond saving. Let go of the anger. Trust me, just this once. I won't fail you." For the first time, Marco faltered. His breathing quickened, the edge of rage giving way to a flicker of doubt. Dante sensed it and pressed forward, carefully guiding him away from the device while Lena completed her work. The pressure plate hummed faintly underfoot, the train's vibration like a heartbeat counting down to disaster. And then Marco did the unthinkable. He lunged toward the plate, intending to trigger it manually, a final act of control. Dante reacted instinctively, catching him mid-motion, and in a brutal, controlled struggle, pinned him against the wall. Lena's hands worked frantically, severing the last connection with precision, and the device powered down, silent, disarmed. The compartment was still. The only sounds were their ragged breaths and the metallic hum of the moving train. Marco slumped to the floor, exhausted and broken, the mask of vengeance stripped away to reveal the man behind the betrayal. Dante stood over him, chest heaving, emotions tangled. "It's over," he said quietly. "No more death. No more betrayal. Let this end." Marco looked up, eyes filled with conflicting emotions: anger, grief, relief, and shame. Maybe it ends, but the scars remain." Lena rose, brushing sweat from her forehead. "It's done," she said softly, voice trembling. "We stopped it. Everyone's alive." Dante's gaze lingered on the disarmed device, then on Marco, then on Lena. The day's sunlight poured through the windows, illuminating their faces, but the shadows of betrayal and near death still lingered. The train continued on its tracks, carrying them away from disaster but not from the consequences of the choices made. Dante knew one thing: trust had to be rebuilt, relationships redefined, and vigilance maintained. The bomb was gone, but the lesson remained: betrayal could come from the closest ally, and courage was the only shield against it. As the train slowed approaching the next station, Dante turned to Lena. "You were brave," he said simply, his voice carrying the weight of gratitude. "You saved lives today. Not just mine, but everyone on this train. You trusted your instincts, and you acted." Lena smiled faintly, exhausted but relieved. "I had to. There was no other choice." Dante glanced back at Marco, who sat silently, absorbing the aftermath. "And him?" he asked, voice low. "Let him reflect," Lena replied. "The lesson is harsh, but it's his choice what he becomes from here." Dante nodded, taking a deep breath. Sunlight flooded the carriage, casting long shadows and illuminating a new beginning. The day had been darkened by danger, but they had survived together. The betrayal, the bomb, the near-death experience, all had forged a new understanding of trust, loyalty, and the delicate balance between life and choice. As the train slowed into the station, Dante held the torn bill in his hand, the faded warning a stark reminder of how close they had come to death. Outside, the sunlight reflected off the tracks, but Dante's mind was already racing. Somewhere out there, the larger conspiracy that had orchestrated this trap still lingered. The danger wasn't fully over, it was merely evolving. The train screeched as it slowed into the station, steel wheels singing against the tracks. Dante Marino's chest heaved, sweat glistening on his brow as sunlight streamed through the windows, casting sharp beams across the chaos of overturned luggage and shaken passengers. Every face in the carriage carried confusion, fear, and relief. Relief at surviving, but confusion at the storm that had erupted mere moments ago. Dante's gaze settled on Lena, standing near the disarmed pressure plate, her hands trembling slightly as the adrenaline drained from her body. She had risked everything to warn him, to intervene, to act. The torn bill she had handed him hours ago was now a symbol of courage, a token of survival, and a reminder that sometimes, even the smallest acts can avert catastrophe. Marco lay slumped against the wall, breathing heavily, his expression a mixture of defeat, shame, and sorrow. The truth had been revealed, and with it, the cost of betrayal. But in that moment, Dante realized something that neither anger nor vengeance could convey. Marco had been a man in pain, not a monster. The bomb had been his method of revenge, but the wound ran deeper than destruction. Lena's voice broke the silence. The device, it's fully disarmed. Nothing will explode. We're safe. Dante exhaled slowly, relief mixing with lingering tension. You saved lives today, he said, his tone both firm and grateful. Not just mine, Lena. Everyone on this train. You made the difference. She smiled faintly, exhausted but proud. I had to, she whispered. There was no other choice. Dante's eyes shifted back to Marco. And him? He asked, voice heavy with meaning. Lena's gaze softened. Let him reflect. The lesson is harsh, but it's his choice now. He can choose to become better, or he can remain lost in his anger. For a long moment, Dante watched Marco, the weight of betrayal and survival pressing on his shoulders. The train had carried them into danger, through deception, and out the other side. The sunlight flooded the compartment, and yet the shadows of what had almost occurred lingered, reminders of how close death had come. Dante held the torn bill in his hand, the faded ink catching the sunlight. It had been a simple piece of paper, but it had altered the course of the day. It had forced him to notice the danger, to trust instincts, and to act decisively. Every step, every decision, had led them to this moment, a narrow escape from annihilation. The passengers began to disembark, faces still pale but filled with gratitude and relief. Some whispered thanks, others simply stumbled into the sunlight, shaken but alive. Dante remained in the cabin for a moment longer, reflecting on the lessons of trust, courage, and vigilance. He turned to Lena, placing a hand on her shoulder. You have bravery beyond measure. You'll never be forgotten for this. She shook her head slightly, a small, exhausted laugh escaping her lips. I just did what needed to be done. Dante's gaze moved once more to Marco, whose eyes met his with a faint glimmer of understanding. Remember this, Dante said quietly, voice firm but compassionate. Actions have consequences. Betrayal is deadly, but redemption is possible. Choose wisely. Marco nodded, silence stretching as the weight of the moment sank in. Outside, sunlight bathed the platform, a symbol of clarity and survival. The immediate threat was gone, but the lessons remained, about trust, vigilance, and the delicate balance between life and choice. As Dante stepped out onto the platform, the warmth of the sun hitting his face, he finally allowed himself to breathe freely. The torn bill remained in his hand, a reminder that even in the face of betrayal and death, courage and quick thinking could turn fate in your favor. Passengers moved around him, unaware of the near catastrophe that had unfolded just minutes before. And Dante, seasoned, sharp, and unbroken, knew that the world was a dangerous place, but he was still standing. Alive, victorious, changed, but not defeated. Dante looked out over the tracks, sunlight reflecting in his eyes. The city sprawled beyond the station, ordinary life moving forward, oblivious to the chaos they had survived. He turned slightly toward the camera, a silent acknowledgement of the danger, the betrayal, and the courage that had saved them all. Some warnings don't just save your life, Dante said quietly, holding the torn bill. They change who you become afterward. Trust, courage, and quick thinking. That's what separates survival from disaster. And sometimes, the smallest acts, a simple warning, a single choice, can prevent catastrophe. If this story gripped your heart, if the twist shocked you, or if that torn bill kept you on edge, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that pull you right into the danger. Every story, every twist, every heartbeat will leave you questioning who to trust next. Don't miss the next story. Your support keeps these tales alive. the empty train tracks, sunlight glinting on the rails, a faint echo of the danger that had passed, and the unspoken reminder that some threats are closer than you think, waiting in daylight, in plain sight, with consequences that can't be ignored.